Duke its lone loss by a pair of points to Gonzaga in Maui. The Hatters still looking for their first Division I victory of the season as they entered the gym for their practice earlier today. It really hit. Hey, we're here, the cathedral of college basketball. Some look at their phones, others through their phones as a lens into college basketball history up into the rafters of Cameron Indoor. And today what stands in front of them, just a part of this Duke team, but a very big one, the best incoming freshman class in the high school class of 2018. Top three players, R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish. Three names to be reckoned with as college basketball has learned already early on this season. Mike Krzyzewski says, let's get real about this whole thing. To the fans, to the players, let's not get spoiled, showing how young this team is and how early they are in their college careers. Perspective is certainly needed. We've got a great perspective up here tonight. My cousin's Corey Alexander, glad to share a part of it with you. So Coach K sends that message to the fan base, but also to his players.
And to his players, he wants them to recognize that they are still a work in progress, and right now it's about being better in March than it is in November. He wants them to continue to improve, not only individually, but as a team, continue to be cohesive with their unit.
So we'll see how they do today against a Stetson squad that lost 64% of its scoring from a year ago. So it's a challenge, but if anybody knows how to get that big win, it's head coach Corey Williams, drafted in two sports and has not only won here, but also got a big win as an assistant at Oral Roberts against a third-ranked Kansas team. So he knows what it takes.
And Corey Williams, now in his sixth season at Stetson, has definitely had a lot of success, but recognizes right now that there's a teaching moment here available for his team and how they can improve as the year goes along as well.
Abayomi Iola jumps at center circle against Zion Williamson. And the freshman from Apple Valley, Minnesota, Trey Jones, controls for the Blue Devils. Lob inside for Williamson. There's Barrett to clean it up baseline, but it's out of bounds, and Stetson gets his first shot on offense.
But you see, of course, Duke coming out with the emphasis on getting the ball inside to Zion Williamson and allowing him to be able to use that physicality to try to take a mismatch.
So Duke sending a message in multiple ways to open this game. First, to get the ball to Zion Williamson, but second, to put the pressure on, going 1-2-2 to start it off. Williamson saves it, and here comes Duke with Reddish leading the break.
You know, and honestly, Mike, I think that's one of the biggest differences with this Duke team and really the last two Duke teams that we've seen with the #1 recruiting class. This group is a better defensive group, and I think that's really what's helped them to be able to gel over the early part of the season.
Jump ball sends it the other way. What's differentiated these freshmen defensively?
The point guard. It's a simple answer. When you see the guy out in front of you, Trey Jones, trying to lock his man down, it sends a message to the other four guys back behind him. Trey Jones is not only the point guard, but he's also the leader of this young team, which is very difficult to do as a freshman, but he's taken on that role and has done it extremely well.
Marquise Sumner controls it, nearly pickpocketed. There's the tip forward from Bolden. Barrett through contact, lays it in for the game's first two.
And Mike, that's a great example. And you could say health may have had something to do with it or confidence, but when have you seen Marquise Bolden hedging a screen all the way out to half court?
Trey Jones and Tyus Jones quite comparable through the first 7 games of their career, off by 1 assist, 1 turnover. As a matter of fact, Trey, averaging about 10 points a game, is outscoring than Tyus did, about 9 points a game at that point in his career.
And I asked Coach K, we had an opportunity to talk to him before the game, and I knew what his answer was going to be. I've had enough conversations with him to say it, but I wanted him to say, and I asked, what is the most important position to you in the game of basketball at every level that you've coached? And he said point guard initially, then he went back to saying whoever that leader is, it could be a point forward, but point guard was the answer. Of course, Coach K was a point guard back in his day, so I was expecting that.
Filtering 4 around the outside. Three-pointer is pure for Cam Reddish. Who's hit as many as 7 of those in a game this year, 43% to start the night from 3.
And you mentioned the 7, of course, doing it at home. This is a great shooting gym, and that's a bucket that Cam Reddish needs. And we talked about his talent many of times, but he is battling with confidence to a bit. But he's also playing with 2 other alpha males. The first time he's really had to play with this level of talent. So he's got to find his way to continue to be aggressive as well.
Kenny Aninye with the lay-in at the other end to make it 5-3 Duke. It's going to be pressure inside. That's what Stetson has shown early. Jones the miss, and Williamson is stripped as he tried to go back up and score where he likes to, right in front of the basket.
And if you're Corey Williams, you like the start from your team right now. There's been no back down in Stetson. They've come out aggressive, and right now hanging tough with the number 3 Blue Devils.
Hit from there earlier. This time Reddish gets back iron on a fresh shot clock. Here's Zion Williamson for 3. Hasn't been his shot this year. He's just 2 of 11 from beyond the arc. 4 on 2 numbers for Stetson. And a gutsy 3-point try from Sumner misses.
And this is where you don't want to do with Duke. You do not want to get in a matchup of trying to run up and down the floor and allowing these talented freshmen to be able to pick their spots in transition.
Barrett missed it, and Bolden stepped out of bounds.
You know, R.J. Barrett, there's been a bit of criticism on him, you know, this year as far as the number of shots that he's taken. I'm a firm believer that every team has to have a go-getter. And that's who R.J. Barrett is for this team. And you see he goes up and gets the lob from Trey Jones. So I have no problem with his field goal attempts, especially with his teammates continuing to give him the basketball as they do.
Stetson's leading scorer, Christian Jones, the sophomore from Columbia, South Carolina, gives the Hatters a 1-point lead. Barrett into the lane. Hop and a slam for Javin DeLaurier. It was interesting to crunch the numbers and look at the field goal attempts for R.J. Barrett versus what Trae Young did last year at Oklahoma. And I know there are a lot of people who say, oh, well, there they go, talking about Trae Young and R.J. Barrett again. But it's comparable because Barrett earlier this week had been averaging about 20 shots a game. Trae Young only took 19.
Well, and only took 19. That's still a lot of shots, but you also have to think about the fact that Trae Young was often being double-teamed as Barrett gets out of transition and gets another dunk. And a great kick ahead by Trae Jones. But Trae Young was taking many of those shots from 25 and 30 feet. R.J. Barrett is not, I mean, he shoots the 3, but that's not where he lives. He's attacking the paint, getting to the free throw line, and also playing much more in the mid-range. So there are different shots, and many of those shots don't lead to runouts and long rebounds for opposing teams.
The shots have been falling early for the Hatters. That drops for Iola, who comes off a 26-point performance on Wednesday against USF, and he's got 7.
And he's actually averaging 18 and 9 over his last 3 games. And you mentioned that career high. He continues to build his confidence. Corey Williams feels as though he will be a strong member of this team once they get to ASUN play.
Williamson going to the stripe for 2 after he got triple teamed as Duke is down by 1. R.J. Barrett. He's going to soar, and then he'll score. Jones to Barrett for a Duke pair. They're down by 1. Well, we don't know if he was offered by Alabama. We do know he was offered by LSU to play football. That is for sure. If you want to see more of that, Earn Everything. It's on ESPN Plus, the 8-part all-access series into Duke basketball. You can follow Coach K, Zion, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, taking you on the lead up to them getting ready for this season and their trip to Canada. So you can start your viewing of that with your free trial of ESPN Plus.
I tell you right now, I was at Clemson last week, and there's still people talking about the fact that he didn't come to Clemson to play basketball.
Weren't you and I at Clemson the day he decided?
We were, and if he decided to play football and didn't go to Clemson and chose Alabama, oh, that would not be pretty.
Zion gets 2 with the left hand.
You see Duke now switching to the man-to-man zone, and one of the areas where I believe they've improved is the three-quarter court, 1-2-1-1 zone that Coach K has implemented. But you see he switches it up, and the ability to be able to play man-to-man, and a lot of that has to do with what we talked about before. Tre Jones is an elite-level defender. And we talk about, you know, his passing and his assist-to-turnover ratio, which are all great, but he is an elite-level defender. And when you have that, and where you can pretty much make life difficult for the opposing point guards, it helps everything for your team defensively.
And the numbers have bared that out so far. On KenPom, Duke is number 7 in defensive efficiency, with Michigan leading the way for the country.
But you see right there, just his energy and effort defensively forces a turnover, you know, and it's already the 4th turnover for Stetson. But he does a lot of that. We saw the tip pass earlier where he throws the lob to R.J. Barrett. He just gets his hands on so many basketballs and gains possessions for Duke.
In some ways, that's almost indefensible under the basket to have to go against Williamson, who checks in at 285. There, Keith Matthews giving up only 100 pounds.
Well, and to be realistic, Zion Williams is no longer 285 pounds. He's about 270 now. He came to Duke at 285, but he's gotten himself into such better shape now that he's been here. I'd say he probably goes about 270. He's still massive, and he's still got an advantage on the block, but it's more so about strength than it really is the size with Zion. And you see what he's done. 55 for 76 from the field, shooting over 67% from the field. And the dunks, the mid-range, doesn't shoot a lot of threes. And, you know, and that's the area where, of course, he's going to be able to improve as a basketball player. But there's nothing you have to do with his offensive rebounding and his ability to score in the paint.
Seven straight for Duke. They were down 12-11 at the timeout, now up by 6. We welcome those of you just joining us here to Durham, North Carolina, inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. It's Duke with the lead on the run. Javin DeLaurier gets another Blue Devils dunk, and it's a timeout taken by Stetson, as they've now allowed 9 straight Duke points. The Blue Devils leaping in front, the number 3 team in the country with the 8-point advantage. And just moments ago, Zion Williamson showing what he can do under the basket.
And he doesn't need much space, but you have to keep a body on him and keep him off of the offensive glass. But this is where Duke has improved. Defensively, turning defense into offense, they have so many players that can handle the basketball and make the lob pass. And, of course, what's always important, they've got just as many guys that can finish the lob pass, and that's why they're so special. You talk about positionless basketball, even though they do have a very good point guard and they have bigs, they score so many points of their points in the paint because they have so many guys that can attack the basket off the dribble or, of course, over top through the air.
It's been full court pressure over the first 7 minutes for Duke, immediately off the inbounds from Stetson, a team that comes in 1-7. They won their season opener against a Division II program, so they're looking for their first D1 victory of the year. But they've now turned it over 6 times. Duke, meanwhile, 6-1, number 3 team in the country. Their only loss this year, an 89-87 defeat to Mark Few's Gonzaga Bulldogs at the Maui Invitational.
And we're going to have to start charting how many of these turnovers Tre Jones is causing with just his defensive pressure alone.
Baseline drive for Reddish, and he's fouled hard by Clay Virk. Corey Williams, year number 6 as the head coach. This may be one of his most challenging, though, after losing an entire starting lineup of seniors last year. 64% of his scoring walked out the door.
And not just that, they lost the school's all-time leading scorer, the school's all-time assist leader, and all-time three-point shooter.
Mike Krzyzewski in year number 39. You flash back all the way to the beginning of his career, which we will a little bit later on. His first game as the head coach at Duke was against Stetson all the way back in 1980. Matthews works on Reddish. Put too much on it, trying to go over the top, and the follow attempt went awry as well from Rain McKeithon. Kicked around to Reddish.
But you can see there's been a strong emphasis by Duke on getting the basketball inside. And Stetson does not want to hold up and wait for Duke's defense to get set. It seems as though they're going to take those opportunities in transition whenever they get them.
Bolden for three. So far we've seen Williamson and Bolden try threes.
Oh, for two
right
now,
from those two guys.
The entire Duke bench stood up when Marquise Bolden shot the three. They were ready to celebrate the big fella knocking down one.
Goldwire goes coast to coast. Jordan Goldwire, the sophomore from Norcross, Georgia, gets his second and third points of the year as Duke is now doubling up Stetson.
And one thing that, you know, I don't recommend anyone trying to run with Duke, but if you are going to try to run with the Blue Devils, one thing for certain is you have to get back in transition. We've seen Duke be able to get out the way too many early easy ones in this game thus far.
One of college basketball's most impressive streaks, 142 straight non-conference home games. Doesn't look to be in doubt so far. It's a steal and two for Jordan Goldwire.
And this is the Duke team, honestly, Mike, that I played against. So when you talk about the defensive pressure and getting out into the passing lanes and how disruptive they are, these are the type of Duke teams that I got used to. We haven't seen this level of defense much over the past few seasons, but this is the way that Coach K wants his teams to be able to defend.
Really impressive rejection from Marquise Bolden underneath the basket as Stetson's scoreless drought extends past 4 minutes. And he gets rewarded at the other end.
And of course, Bolden gets the credit for the bucket, but that's another assist by R.J. Barrett. And people talk about the shot attempts, but they don't take into account that R.J. Barrett is a playmaker as well. And he's averaging over 4 assists a game and has 5 already here this afternoon. Oh, evening right now, isn't it?
Well, the sun goes down early, but it's officially
You're absolutely right. And we see Trey Jones being disruptive on the defensive end of the floor, turning that defense into 2 points. But then you see just the pressure forces Jaleel Raleigh not into just one travel, but 2 actually in this game.
So what is it? Is it intensity that is the difference in the defense?
It is a commitment. It is intensity, but it's also the scheme. When they are in passing lane, so they're making passes difficult, but you can play that way when you're challenging opposing teams to beat you one-on-one. And when you have someone on the back line that can clean it up and someone does beat you, such as Marquise Bolden does on that possession, it makes it that much easier for you to put pressure on your opponent.
On the drive, Bolden soaring in again, but a little bit too late. Kenny Aninye breaks the scoreless drought for Stetson. And a quick and easy response from the Blue Devils back down the other end of the floor.
You know, and Duke is hard enough to play against when you play well. You can't make the mistake of going underneath a dribble handoff on Cam Reddish. That's easy pickings for number 2 in white.
Goodman missed it. Iola coming in too strong, and he gets called for the foul, his second.
Trey Jones, Zion Williamson, and Javin DeLaurier coming back into the game now. But, you know, Jordan Goldwire gave Duke very good minutes during that stretch, getting out in transition, 2 buckets for him, and, of course, coming up with the steal. So, and that would be an important position. You can't imagine that Trey Jones will be able to play close to 40 minutes during ACC play. Jordan Goldwire definitely going to have to develop as that good backup point guard for Coach K, because the way Trey plays defense, he's going to find himself at times in foul trouble.
And Goldwire has been reliable off the bench so far. He's played in every game, about 9 minutes a game. Barrett's got his parents in attendance today watching courtside. He goes all the way. I don't know how he finished that one.
Well, he's going left. He's a strong left hand, and you see him flex the left arm right there. And you see him getting to the rim, knowing the contact is going to happen, but his eyes never leave the rim. as he knows he has an opportunity to put more points on the board.
It's a guy who, as he comes here to the ACC, is no stranger to being the alpha dog on his team, as he was for several years for Coach Kevin Boyle at Montford Academy outside Orlando.
If there has been one knock on R.J. Barrett this season, in my opinion, got to become a better free throw shooter. And that's something that many freshmen struggle with. But those plays right there, especially as they get deep into ACC play, he's going to have to finish that three-point play off.
Long board. Stetson keeps it in the hands of Jones, their leading scorer, about 13 a game. Also their most reliable three-point shooter. Aninye, a former high school teammate of the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, feeds inside. Jones and Barrett in the area, and the foul goes on Barrett, the first on the freshman from Ontario. So there goes Goodman to the bench, the only senior on the roster for 1-7 Stetson, which is lost by about an average of 13 points a game so far, 1-7 to start the year.
And believe it or not, and Corey Williams is 6 years at Stetson. This is the third time he's only had one or fewer seniors on his roster. So, you know, it's been a rebuilding project for Corey Williams, but they've actually had pretty good success at Stetson, playing in the A-Sun 3 years ago, and he's trying to find a way to get his team back to that level.
Dangerous territory for Zion. Going for the tip, wanted another highlight reel play. He'll have to settle for just a 19-point lead. Coming up, a look at the relationship between the late President Bush and Duke basketball. Mike Krzyzewski.
Say you got a great coach. Maybe you didn't know that. But,
Mike Krzyzewski's Blue Devils comfortably in front of the Stetson Hatters. We showed you the video of the late President George H.W. Bush, who passed away at age 94. And him here, that was back in 2014 when he saw Duke defeat NC State in January of that year. And you go back to 1980, the year that he started his vice presidential tenure and then went into office in 1981. That was just weeks apart, was Coach K's first game as head coach at Duke after 5 years at Army, coinciding with when H.W. Bush went into the White House.
And we flash back to 1980. Look at the shorts. The shorts are coming back. But Duke still getting it done on the basketball hardwood.
Those two became close, especially because of what they've done for cancer research. Here's Zion, fouled as he goes to the rim. George H.W. Bush, the founder of the CEO Roundtable on Cancer. Williamson off to a nice start. He's got 9 points and efficient shooting as always, 4 of 5.
You know, oddly enough, Mike, Stetson and Duke played every year from 1980 to 1990. So when of course, George H.W. Bush was in office as vice president and as president, where he was elected president in 1988. This was a commonplace thing between Duke and Stetson. So a little history lesson here today for all of us.
We tried to get Coach K to rack his brain on what he remembered from the game in 1980, and to be fair, long time ago, didn't really remember a lot.
And he told us, plain and simple, he doesn't remember a lot from last season. So he's focused on what's in front of him right now.
He said, quite accurately, I'm just glad that the guy who was coaching in that game is still coaching now. 39 years into his tenure here at Duke. For Coach K, who will turn 72 in February.
And no signs of slowing down. And, you know, he seems to get invigorated by these classes that he's getting now. You know, for the last 3 seasons, he's had the #1 recruiting class in the country. And an opportunity really to go out and see if he can win a national championship with this group.
Well, it helps when you've got the #1 player, R.J. Barrett, also for the 3rd straight year, after Marvin Bagley III and Harry Giles.
And #2 and #3. And I believe Trey was #9, #10, somewhere in that area. And they continue to cause havoc defensively. And I can tell you right now, R.J. Barrett's shooting percentage is going to go way up if he continues to come up with these steals and gets layups Mike, I'm telling you, the difference with this Duke group is the ability to defend. They've got superstars that are willing to play defense. R.J. Barrett turning defense into offense. The steal, the finish, and then the basketball IQ and wherewithal to come back and steal the next pass and dunk that one home. And, of course, his reward for that, he gets to take a break and chill out with his boys on the sideline.
A little bit of a breather for the #1 recruit in the country, but that gives Jack White some more time on the floor, along with Javin DeLaurier, two guys who come off the bench on a regular basis. But White has been an integral part of this team this year, number 41 in White for Duke. He's gone from last year playing 6 minutes a game to this year playing 26 minutes a game and has earned high praise from Coach K.
And if you're going to win a national championship with freshmen, and we've seen it twice happen, of course, in this past decade, Kentucky in 2012, Duke in 2015, you have to have veteran players as Duke's defense forces another timeout by Stetson. But you have to have veteran players like Jack White, like Javin DeLaurier, that come in and help you and help these young players, especially at crunch time. That's what Kentucky had in 2012. That's what Duke had with Emil Jefferson and Quinn Cook in 2015. Can Jack White and Javin DeLaurier be those type of guys?
Certainly a lot on their shoulders, leadership-wise, why they got named captains for this year's team. Coming up Tuesday from Madison Square Garden in New York City, the 24th annual Jimmy V Classic. 6-1 Oklahoma that looked good in Atlantis. They went 2-1 with wins over Florida and Dayton against a very young Notre Dame squad, which will have had a week to rest after beating Illinois in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And then for the first time, 7 Eastern, Gators, Mountaineers. Both games on ESPN and the ESPN app. Saw Notre Dame on Tuesday against Illinois, a young team, one of the younger ones Mike Bray has ever had. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare with TJ Gibbs leading the charge this year once ACC play comes around. Keith Matthews, the sophomore from Blythewood, South Carolina, rejected by White. On the break, DeLaurier has his 3rd dunk of the night. Duke has made 10 straight buckets.
And Mike, I'm not going to bother with my quick math, but this was a 12-11 game. Stetson had a 1-point lead, and Duke has just exploded ever since, and it happens with their defense.
It's fast break buckets. 9 dunks for Duke. And there may be another one coming. Zion to the rim. Pushed as he goes behind the back.
You know, Zion Williamson, and everyone loves the basketball, the dunking, the high-flying action, and how he uses his strength. But there is skill to Zion Williamson. This one he's fouled on. We saw him earlier come down on the fast break, low in and out crossover, right to the foot, dunk, easy. And again, this is not something that Zion just started doing this year. He's had that ability, but because of his high-flying antics, everyone thinks he's just a dunker, but he's so much more as a player. As Cam Reddish is so much more than a shooter, but he's a really good shooter.
He's got 11 now. He's taken more threes than any other player in the ACC, but for good measure, when you make almost half of them, the light stays green.
But look how far Duke has Stetson extended on offense, because they get out and pressure the ball. And you have to make individual plays as they're able to do there and be able to score, but you have to make individual plays against this team when they spread their defense out thus far.
That Iola basket ends a 15-0 run for Duke. O'Connell finger rolls from outside the lane. Everybody's been a contributor who stepped on the floor tonight for Duke. Still 5 minutes to go in the first half, and they've already hit 50. Regardless of the outcome tonight, though, this will be a day and a game that the members of this Hatters squad certainly never forget. O'Connell gives the bump.
Well, it's a great experience to be able to come here and play against Duke, and I tell you what else is a great experience. Being able to play for Duke, especially when you're as good as these guys are and you get to enjoy watching your teammates go out and put on a show.
White secures it. Baseline, Reddish lost the handle as he went up looking for a highlight reel play. If you were with us when we started the show tonight, showed you some of the footage of the Stetson team walking into the gym. Some players looking down at their phones, others using it as a window to the world to record their first time coming into Cameron Indoor Stadium. And won't forget it for a variety of reasons, like playing against top players like Cam Reddish, who's now got 14 points after the three.
Yeah, and that's one of the claims of fame. You can go back and say, hey, I played against this guy. I played against R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, because they're going to watch these players go on and possibly become NBA superstars. And to be able to say, I went toe-to-toe with those guys, that's pretty much, that's something you definitely can tell your friends when you get home. You love it, but you kind of want to hold them up, and we get an opportunity to come back. We're going to see just how much the connection.
.310 to go, first half. Mike Cousins, Corey Alexander, glad to have you with us from Durham, North Carolina tonight. As Duke continues to go on a run, since Stetson led 12-11 in this game, it's been Duke 44, Stetson 8.
And I'm glad to hear Coach Greenberg talking about Alabama football and how Jalen Hurts.
Is Jake the Wonder Dog now into football as well?
I can tell you right now, I'm happy for Jalen Hurts, for everything that happened for him at the beginning of this football season.
Is he going to transfer? What's the story?
Absolutely. And for him to be able to come in and in such a crucial moment and be able to play well for the Crimson Tide and get them an SEC championship, maintain that #1 ranking, I'm certain. That's big. I'm so happy for that young man.
Wow, they were really ready to throw a wrench into the College Football Playoff Committee's decision-making tomorrow with the selection show at noon tomorrow. Oh, on the lob, Bolden had it slip through his fingers. So R.J. Barrett, #1 player in this year's ESPN 100, has been one of the best Canadian players overall in college basketball this year. But the list of freshmen is expansive who have made an impact so far.
It really has. You know, we had an opportunity to talk with Coach K about, you know, really, and he specifically mentioned Canadian basketball and how much more they have developed and how much better the players have become, especially with the opportunity to be able to come and play in the United States. You know, R.J. Barrett played at Montverde Academy. You see so many different guys coming down now and playing high school basketball in the States. But he's a firm believer that if the Canadian basketball team got all of their guys playing for them in international basketball, they would be able to strongly compete with the USA, such as RJ's team did when they won the U19 gold medal.
Reddish gets the layup, 90 seconds left first half. I have no question about that. You go and you watch summer basketball, and when they put international teams together as high school players, you get to see a guy like Iggy Brasdeikis or Lugens Dort, who's been really sharp for Bobby Hurley at Arizona.
And Dort played on the Adidas, travel team that went over to Europe, and I had a number of the coaches from that texting me constantly talking about how good this young man was, and he's really just putting those skills on display for Bobby Hurley out of Arizona State. And you look at R.J. Barrett's numbers, and Dort's not far off, averaging over 22 points a game as well.
Nice way for Reddish to get inside. 18 first half points. A game high for Cam Reddish, who's only averaging 15 over Duke's first 7 games. Three-pointer from Sumner, around and out. Second chance opportunity. White called for the foul. And you know who's among those Canadian freshmen as well, probably not going to get as much attention now that Darius Garland injured his knee and is likely out for the year, is Simi Shitu, who's also a fantastic player at Vanderbilt.
And he is that, you know, and of course, you know, it got to hurt me to my heart to talk about my man Darius Garland and him getting injured. But, you know, it's part of the game, and like I say, you have to accept it. But one of the great, and he and Trey Jones, of course, with Duke, are great friends, as well as Cam Reddish. So, you know, I know that they're thinking about him, but, you know, the show goes on. And, you know, we're going to have an opportunity, and we got a chance to talk about some college football. We got an opportunity to compare a particular Duke freshman, I won't say a name, but to some of the premier athletes, some that have played football, not just in college, but of course moving on professionally. But we'll just call them grown men amongst boys for right now. But we'll see a little bit more about that in the second half.
His name rhymes with Shmayan Schmilliamson.
Great, Mike. They'll never figure that one out.
We're only 10 seconds away from halftime at 59-25. I think we'll have the opportunity to talk about a lot of things in the second half, Corey.
I tell you right now, your hint of Shmayan, how did you say that again?
Shmayan Schmilliamson.
Okay, yeah, that way. No one's ever going to figure out who we're talking about right now. But so that's even better for them to stick around for the second half.
And he wears a number that rhymes with fun.
Okay.
So
and watching him play is a lot of fun.
If you can't figure that out, guess what? We'll be back soon for the second half. The clock says 0.1. The officials say 0.0. A lot of that was sparked by their effort on defense.
It was, enforcing 14 turnovers in the first half and turning those into 28 points on the other end of the floor. So Duke has been great doing the job defensively and turning those turnovers into points. And when you see what they're doing defensively, it only gives you really the sense that this team is going to get better as the season goes along.
Williamson with the easy flush at the basket, now has 13. Duke's third leading scorer, Cam Reddish, in front with 18 first half points, including 4 of 8 from 3.
And that's a small play right there, Mike, but it means a lot. Cam Reddish actually gets beat, gambles in the backcourt, but R.J. Barrett steps over to help, but Reddish doesn't stop on the play, hustles in, gets a deflection, and knocks the basketball out of bounds, allowing Duke to set their defense.
You know, and it's that type of effort we're talking about. Here's Williamson, another inside-out dribble. Wow, that hang time's something else.
And the hang time is one thing, but again, the ability to be able to come up with the rebound and the speed to beat everyone else down the floor and just take off from wherever and be able to finish, putting points on the board before Stetson could even get their defense set.
The effort, though, we saw last time down the floor from Reddish, that's not something that is uncommon just among freshmen, but against players at any level in the college game. (63-27). Duke at 6-1, number 3 in the country. Saw the only team they've lost to, Gonzaga, get challenged earlier today. Nice step back there from Barrett.
And that's where, honestly, R.J. Barrett is different from really pretty much everyone in the country. With his size, he can create his own shot. And oftentimes he gets criticized for the number of field goal attempts. And of course, especially going back to the end of the Gonzaga game, Duke's only loss on the season. But when your coach and your teammates have the respect for you and the confidence in you to go get a bucket at crunch time, that's a compliment. And he's the one guy, in my opinion, that can really go get his own shot without having the help of his teammates. You see this time penetrating, getting to the paint, going to the offhand, which is his right hand, and able to finish over defender.
Just makes it look so easy sometimes. He comes in today 23 points a game. Do you think that it's feasible for him, as he is today, to continue through league play as the ACC's leading scorer?
Yes. Not only do I think it's feasible, I think there's a very strong possibility that that's going to happen. He is an elite level scorer, not just a scorer. We've seen his playmaking ability today and really all season long, but you see his ability to grab the rebound, and just like Zion Williamson, he can go full court But I tell you right now, the ball moves faster with the pass than it does with the dribble. Trey Jones exemplifying that to perfection.
Sneaking it through a mouse hole to find Reddish on the break. 11 dunks. Zion makes it a dozen. Those are the dangerous passes that Duke so often has taken away from the opposition. There's Jones getting into the defense and making it 73-29. Barrett continues to pour it in. 23 points. Now it's a combined 37 between R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson with the rebound. They're the only pair of major conference teammates to each average at least 20. And R.J. Barrett about as consistent as the sun rising and setting right now.
And Mike, we have to remember, R.J. Barrett scored 33 points. The most by Duke freshman is Trey Jones. Gets his hands on another basketball. All of the freshmen just showing off their skills here tonight for the Blue Devils. Zion off the rebound, showing the handles and the ability to finish, getting out in transition. But of course, Cam Reddish hustling on defense, doing his part. R.J. Barrett getting it done all over the floor. You can't guard that.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Miller Lite. Great taste and only 96 calories.
With Corey Alexander, Mike Cousins, glad you're along for the ride tonight as Duke leads Stetson by 50 with 15 and a half minutes to play in the second half. Going for win number 143 in a row here at home against non-conference opponents. Checked in with our great stats and information staff this week at ESPN just to get some perspective. The 142 number, it's impressive, but it can get a little bit lost just how good they've been in that streak. Only 16 of those 142, it'll be 143 tonight. 16 of those games have been played within 9 points as the final margin. Two teams that came closest going back to 2000 when they lost against St. John's. You had Belmont in 2011, lost by 1, and John Becker's Vermont team in 2013 came within a point as well.
So wait, are you calling this one right now? Are you saying that this one's going to be a win?
You know, I'm not very confident in many of my sports predictions.
Okay.
But I am confident in this one.
Because I thought you were being a bit bold, but I understand.
I'll leave that to Marquise Bolden.
Wow. You know, that was bad.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
But you wear it proudly.
Shoot or shoot.
There you go.
It's Jordan Goldwire, Alex O'Connell in the backcourt here for Duke, with Reddish certainly ready to let it fly when the opportunity arises. Two teams that will do the same. Number 1 Notre Dame and number 2 UConn tomorrow 4 Eastern on ESPN2. It's the Jimmy V Women's Classic in South Bend. So 2 huge games this week at Purcell Pavilion for number 1 Notre Dame. Muffet McGraw's squad demolished number 14 Iowa on Thursday, and now the challenge is UConn. 2 tips don't go, neither for Goldwire nor Delorier. How about this? Gino Auriemma, head coach of UConn. The last 10 years, he's lost to Muffet McGraw 8 times. Against everybody else, he's lost 6 times.
Which is the reason I'll be tuned in to watch that game.
It's 4 Eastern tomorrow right here on ESPN2. 82-29 off another three-pointer for Duke. As O'Connell puts it in, came in better than 50% from three today, and he's got 7.
And Alex O'Connell's another one of those guys that Duke's going to look to for that leadership. Although he's only a sophomore, you know, has the opportunity and has played in big games. He got a lot of quality minutes last year when Duke started 4 freshmen and Grayson Allen. But Alex O'Connell really was their 6th man and gave them heavy minutes and gained a tremendous amount of experience that will come into play as this season goes along. And I'll tell you what else will come into play. Cam Reddish's ability to make plays for himself and his teammates. And you see Coach K intentionally is playing Cam Reddish a lot with the second unit to give him opportunities to be more aggressive, and does that, showing off his ball handling ability and the ability to be able to finish at the rim and the opportunity for a three-point play. See, RJ was flexing the left muscle for himself, but now he goes to the right arm because Cam Reddish is right-handed. See, that's the type of stuff you got to pick up on, Mike.
That's why I need you sitting next to me.
No, you need me sitting next to you when you start telling those terrible jokes like you did regarding Bolden just now. I hope America was not paying attention and didn't listen to that.
I hope our boss, David, wasn't either.
Oh, he's on it. You probably got a group text right now.
85-29 the lead for Duke, looking to go to 7-1. Williamson back onto the floor and back off to the races again. He's got 17. Here's O'Connell, a corner try. Delorier right there, up through contact, counted and 1.
Javin Delorier getting involved in the action, offensive rebound and put back. And I'll be completely honest with you, Mike, I was here for Countdown to Craziness, and all signs at that time was pointed toward Javin Delorier being the starting center for this team. He had a great camp, had played really well, and then he got injured. And from that time, I believe it was Marquise Bolden really, you know, took it to the next level and gained the nod from Coach K in that starting lineup. But Javin Delorier's ability to guard multiple positions, and he can also shoot the three. So I think that he's going to be very valuable with this team as that center position, if you call it one, as this season goes on, especially as Duke gets to when they get into ACC play.
His development, Alex O'Connell's development, I think have been interesting things to watch, along with Jack White, who we told you earlier made a huge jump, 7th biggest leap in minutes in Division I basketball this year. Zion is 0 for 2 from 3 today. That's off the hands of Jaleel Raleigh, the Durham native, and out of bounds back to Duke.
And Jaleel Raleigh got all the tickets today. I was talking to the guys at Stetson at shoot-around, and they were talking about tickets. Of course, opportunity to come and play at Duke, their family and friends, but Jaleel Raleigh, being from Durham, got the bulk of the ticket share.
And Corey Williams, the head coach, too, said his mom wanted to cook for the team after the game. It's a home-cooked meal during a tough college basketball season. It's hard to come by sometimes when you're living a lot of life on the road. Foul there is against Bolden.
You know, we talked with Corey Williams, and of course we knew this was going to be a tough task for Stetson coming into this building, taking on this high-powered Duke team. But what Corey told us was it's solely about us improving. He said there are going to be times where, you know, I can look up at the scoreboard and maybe not like what I see, but I want to make sure that my team is improving every time because, you know, in the Atlantic Sun, his team is not going to get an at-large bid. It's solely about being the best team that they can be early March when they play in their conference tournament, seeing if they can get a bid to the NCAA tournament.
Raleigh with the reverse lay-in. Nice job to get to the bucket. Corey Williams says his speed is, and this is a direct quote, like an unharnessed colt. My equine experience is not enough to say whether that's true, but he certainly is fast getting down the floor. And how about that? Dad sitting right behind him. Justin Robinson hits it from the corner.
Justin Robinson showing his range and you showing off your vocabulary. Equine knowledge? Is that what you just said?
If you can't hang, it's going to be a long season on Saturdays in the ACC.
I'm telling you now I can't hang, but I will be calling you out each and every time. Just say horse.
Well, whether it's horse, dunking, 3 points, Zion's probably going to win. But how does he stack up against other similarly equipped professional athletes. Very often somebody comes around the size of Zion Williamson. You compare him with some of the best in their respective sports, whether it was Herschel or Bo or Daryl Dawkins. You mentioned he slimmed down now from his 6'7", 285, but what those guys can do at that size is just remarkable.
And when you're ever mentioned in the same category, regardless of what it is, as Wilt Chamberlain, you are doing something special. Julius Peppers was a big-time basketball player, of course, even better football player, but I can remember him and his athleticism at North Carolina, playing on a very good team there. But this right here, if you ever put my name on any list with Wilt Chamberlain, I would be posting that. And I don't even post stuff on Instagram anymore, but that's going on the gram if you put me on any list beside Wilt Chamberlain.
I've got one. People who played in the NBA.
Oh, I'm on that list. Okay, thank you.
Will that get you back on Instagram now?
If you send it to me. But you got to put my picture beside it like we had Zion over there.
Put you side by side with Wilt.
I actually had the opportunity to meet Wilt, believe it or not, in France. And we were in the airport, and we were a Foot Locker NIT All-Star team, and they said we're waiting on someone, and everybody's anxious. We're just getting to France, and they said we got a special guest coming with us. And I can tell you right now, Wilt Chamberlain walked on that bus, and myself and Glenn Robinson, the big dog, and we saw Wilt Chamberlain walk, and you're talking about people acting like little kids. And it was just after he wrote the book. So, of course, he had a different level of fame after the book anyway.
Well, I think he was probably a better athlete than you, though, because he was a high jumper and he played volleyball.
Wait a minute. Why are we comparing Wilt Chamberlain to me?
You wanted to be on the list with him. Now you're on the list.
Okay,
you can't back out now.
But again, we didn't say comparing me to Wilt. I would never have argued that I was the athlete that Wilt was. Did you ever see the picture of him where he was jumping on the volleyball court and his whole midsection was over top of a regulation volleyball net? Unreal.
That's the picture I'm going to use to put you guys together.
I can't believe you just did that to me.
You were playing at University Hall, just barely getting the ball above the rim to dunk it.
Does that look like, is that Brankovic who's coming up gimpy down there for Duke? Went down earlier, but seems to be a little gimpy. Checking on that ankle at the free throw line.
He relaces the shoe there on the opposite side of the lane. Brankovic played 2 minutes against Indiana on Tuesday in that 90-69 win.
We see Wilt. I talked about Wilt in his photo. That was pretty impressive too, Zion. You know, and again, I've seen higher from Zion. And, you know, Paul Biancardi, our great recruiting analyst for ESPN, says that he's the best basketball athlete he's ever seen. And when you add the size into it, I still think that LeBron James is the best athlete to play basketball ever. And that would be even ahead of Wilt, because when you add the speed. But all of these guys and what they do jumping-wise is great. None of them touch Vince Carter. Vince Carter used to look down into the rim.
I remember being in school. This was probably like 6th grade. When that video came out of him jumping over the 7-footer. I don't know what
it was actually
where that guy was from.
A team that Coach K was coaching on, and one of the U.S. Olympic teams. Actually, Coach K may not have been coaching at that point, but it was during the Olympic Games, and he cleared a 7-1 guy and never touched him.
That was like before YouTube and like dial-up internet, but you're like, play it again, play it again. All right, 3 minutes later, it's finally the 6-second clip is buffered, and you're good to go. Our esteemed producer, Kim Belton, says Frederick Weiss was the guy who was, at the time, you could still say posterized.
And Frederick Weiss thanks you for bringing that up to everyone now.
That's got to be a tough dinner party introduction. Hi, I'm Frederick Weiss. Oh, you're the guy.
Well, at least everyone knew at that point he played in the Olympics. Right. We had a good talk with Coach K about the changes in Olympic basketball and with FIBA. You know, he was schooling us on all kinds of stuff earlier today. Asked him if he was going to miss being the U.S. national team coach, and he explained to us that he loved it, but it was definitely a pressure-filled, taxing job that he does not miss, and he loves having the opportunity to enjoy that time now with his own beloved Blue Devils.
Brankovic needs a shot. He turns it over. Abayomi Iola gets hit from behind, and it's a clean block from Delorier.
Okay, Mike, so now we talked about Duke's energy and their effort and how they're going to be able to sustain this throughout the season. You are up 60, and Javin Delorier does not concede a wide-open dunk and comes in to block it. And that, I'm sure, got a tremendous reaction from his coaching staff as well as his teammates, because that is winning basketball. You're not looking at the score. You're simply building great habits on how you have to go out and play each and every possession, and that's what you want from your teammates.
Hey, Corey. Psst, it was a foul.
It was not a foul. We saw the replay. Hand is part of the ball. Hand is part of the ball. See, there you go. You know what? You would think getting hit on the hand is a foul, because you say equine instead of horse.
See, but you remember that. Now you're going to go forward and remember December 1st, 2018 as the day that jumped into your vocabulary.
Okay.
Duke has grown its lead from 50 to 60 here with 8:40 to go in the second half. Certainly the Blue Devils have responded to the message from Coach K about needing to be able to finish the entire game, coming off of that Indiana performance where it was never particularly close, and they held IU to 33% shooting in the first half. Here's another three-point try from Justin Robinson, who had 2 points on the season coming into the game.
And Justin Robinson has really improved his ability. Came to Duke as a walk-on, but was awarded a scholarship by Coach K because of his leadership and the way that he goes about working for this team. Of course, famously the son of one Admiral, David Robinson, a.k.a. 5-0. His wife Valerie beside him. I always had the running joke with them. Valerie thought it was funny. David never did. But their older son's name is Corey, and he was born up my rookie year in San Antonio. So I said, okay, Dave, thank you for naming your son after me. He didn't laugh. He didn't find it as funny as I did.
How long did you guys play together for?
We were teammates for 3 years in San Antonio, and one of the best people. You know, of course, he was the 1995 NBA MVP. So when I was coming in, he had won the MVP the year before. And, you know, but great basketball player, but one of the best people you will ever meet.
14-year career. Ended in 03, and he's in the Hall of Fame with a couple of championships to go along with it. Traveling the call against Duke, Stetson ball when we come back.
And like you always used to try to teach, you're now trying to teach me about equine and vocabulary. The Admiral used to do that, and he would approve of your vocabulary. But his son makes a three, it's just okay. Come on, 5-0. We got to be better. Justin knocks down another three. Okay, now he can applaud. He appreciates that one.
Duke comfortably out in front of Stetson, 7:40 to go. Mike Cousins, Corey Alexander with you here as the number 3 team in the country is on its way to 7-1. Backdoor cut was nice. So was the finish for Christian Jones.
And a good setup for Corey Williams and this group coming out of the timeout. And again, we talked about, you know, when we had a chance to talk to Coach Williams before the game, it's about improving. He knew this would be a tough task to come in and take on this Duke team. As good as they are and as young as his team is right now, the experience is you know, something that these guys will remember for their lifetime. And at the same time, they want to be able to come away with certain things that they can do against this level of competition. So they know when they get into ASUN play, they have certain things that they can rely on.
White takes the feed. 3 doesn't go for him. Get around the holiday season, the schedule sometimes gets a little bit easier as it is here for Duke. They've got Hartford on Wednesday, and then their Ivy League tour as they take on Yale and Princeton before a game of significant intrigue. Number 20 Texas Tech at Madison Square Garden 5 days before Christmas.
And this is also concerning, Mike. Now, the Texas Tech, that's going to be a very good game. You know, Texas Tech is a really good team, but they have such a long break before they play their first ACC game. Even though it is at home against Clemson, that's a long time to not have competition over 2 weeks pretty much. And so that's going to be interesting to see how much rust this team will have on it over that stretch.
I think that'll certainly be one of the storylines that follows the team as they don't play from December 20th against Texas Tech until then January 5th against Clemson. Speaking of MSG, more action there comes your way Tuesday with the 24th annual Jimmy V Classic. Oklahoma sees Notre Dame. And then for the first time, it's the Gators and the Mountaineers, Florida, West Virginia. Both games on ESPN and the ESPN app. Especially with that layoff after the game against Texas Tech before the Clemson game, you have to think about how young this team is. Out of 353 teams in college basketball, they're the 346th youngest.
And not only that, what gets them to 346 instead of 353 is a number of players that aren't really in their regular rotation. Because when you think about now, you have Marquise Bolden, Jam DeLaurier, Jack White, who are juniors who play heavy minutes. But outside of that,
Antonio Vrankovic is a senior, and Brennan Besser, who didn't play in a game last year, is also a senior.
But he did ride a bike across country, which, again, that's another story. And when you've done that, I don't care what year you are, that's experience in itself. Rode a bike 3,500 miles. Was it from Seattle to New York? I know it was somewhere in the West Coast to New York, stopping along the way. I think it took 2 months doing basketball clinics. Now, that's special.
Also sounds quite tiring, which makes it even more impressive.
Hey, I get in a lot of Peloton work here now, buddy. I might be able to make it happen.
Seattle to New York.
Yes. I don't think they have that trip on my Peloton, though.
The several-day-long trip. But that's a really great endeavor to be able to do that and to be able to do it for a good cause as well. Marquise Sumner, the junior from North Augusta, South Carolina, first year at Stetson as the injured player.
Looks like Sumner takes a shot to the midsection. You see the left elbow right there to the ribs. That hurts. You want to display toughness? You're doing it right now, because I can tell you, I've had rib injuries before. When you get hit like that, that's extremely tough.
Remember, this is Jimmy V Week, and it's your opportunity to join ESPN and the V Foundation in the fight against cancer. Visit v.org/donate. All donations benefit the V Foundation for Cancer Research.
And I've been fortunate around this time of year for the last few years to always have an opportunity to do a game at Duke during or around V Week. And when you get an opportunity to talk to Coach K about his relationship with Jimmy V, it really started when, of course, they played against each other, coached against each other, but they became great friends once Jimmy V started working for ESPN. And the bond created, if you go back, and of course everyone knows about the speech, but you'll see, and he talks about Coach K, but Coach K and Dick Vitale are the two people helping Jimmy V off the stage. Coach K and his wife flew on the same plane with Jimmy V to, on the way to the ESPYs for the speech, and he simply says it was divine intervention for him to be able to get on the stage and do that speech. He was sick on the plane the entire time. He felt like there was no way he'd have enough energy to talk, but of course when he got the microphone, Jimmy V lit up like a Christmas tree, did what he does best. It was a great storyteller. It was a dynamic speaker. And then, of course, he struggled after that. But just to hear Coach K talking about that moment is really, that's insightful enough.
And as Coach Krzyzewski told us about his coaching debut, which was against Stetson here at Duke back in 1980, he said he also got a pretty good recommendation from Jimmy V.
He really did. Coach K struggled his first 3 years at Duke. And it was Jimmy V, who was, not too far up the road in Raleigh at that point at NC State, who won a national championship in 1983, who let the public know that Duke had a great coach in Mike Krzyzewski, and they needed to be patient and give him time. And, Coach K always talks about, how grateful he is to the president and AD at the time that gave him that opportunity. And here we are, 38 years later, 5 national championships later, and really the best modern-day men's basketball coach, to know of. He's very grateful for that, but it was Jimmy V who gave him a glowing endorsement. And this was before they really were friends. This is when they were competitors.
If you wanted to reach Coach K's win total at this point, you'd have to, 20-win season is just about the standard for having a good year. You'd have to do it for about 54 years a year.
And when you look at it, in 1980, they didn't play as many games as you play now. Now you can play up to 40 games. You didn't play 30 or 31 regular season games then. And you play 40 games, you have to get to the NCAA championship. But you didn't play as many games when he was starting in 1980. So, again, his winning is – the level of winning is uncharted. I mean, granted, if we talk about the home non-conference winning streak alone, I'm not sure what the longest of all time is, but it has to be something that he's probably tying or close to tying one of their own Duke records from, throughout the 90s.
All of that ties into what he talked about after the Indiana game to say, hey, let's cool things down a little bit. Let's not judge day to day how things go with how young this team is. 346th youngest team in the country out of 353. And as you mentioned, his thanks to the athletic director, the president, when he was hired in 1980 to become the head basketball coach after 5 years at Army. Had he been judged sharply or harshly on his first couple seasons, you wouldn't have the coach 39 years later who's as successful as he is as a 5-time NCAA champion. Nevertheless, though, whether it's a basketball coach or a football coach, no matter how successful they are, will tell you the concerns that Coach K shares with some of his colleagues over on the football side. And don't forget about the Mountain West Championship game tonight. Fresno State, Boise State. That's a big one as well. Rematch of last year's Mountain West title game. 97-43 the advantage for Duke. Nice night for the triumvirate of R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish combining for 66 points.
Here we go again. What was it?
Triumvirate?
My goodness, spell it. Spell it. Now, see?
Triumvirate.
I like
Triumvirate.
it. Okay. Trio would have worked. But,
Troika. Language of origin, please. Regulars still on the floor here for Stetson, with a backup crew out there for Duke, with the starters not going to see any more time tonight. And the aforementioned Brennan Besser plays in his 3rd game this year. Well, when all eyes are on you as the #3 team in the country, you're 6-1. Your only loss comes by 2 points. Not all of the commentary is going to be positive. And so Mike Krzyzewski earlier this week just pointed out how young his team is and how much they still have to learn. They're 6-1, and they're really young. This is one of the youngest starting lineups that he's ever played. Alex O'Connell hits the 3 to send Duke over the century mark. And another coach in the ACC, his fan base apparently not satisfied with a 56-35 win over South Carolina. Dabo Swinney, check yourself. We're 12-0. We got a great senior class. Stop complaining. Do they have a case to argue there?
Now, all of that was okay. The scary part of this quote was, if 12-0 is not good enough,
I know where you're going.
Maybe I need to start checking other places.
And I don't think he meant it like that, as if he was going to leave.
Oh, no. That's exactly how he meant it. So
where's he going to go?
Well, there is one place he could go.
It's
at some point,
at the moment.
His alma mater.
Right, Alabama.
So people in Clemson And like I said, and I say this to my closest friends and family. I am a Clemson football fan. I am an alum of the University of Virginia. Love Virginia football. But I am a Clemson football fan. Do not run Dabo out with these unrealistic expectations. Let's, as an ACC, keep Dabo Swinney in our conference, continuing to build the powerhouse football program, just like Justin Robinson is building a nice game for himself on this one, showing off the three-point shot, and now the ability to get to the rim, has 8 points, the opportunity to put another one on the board.
Meanwhile, R.J. Barrett, 26. How's that for efficiency? Going 12 of 14. And what goes into that, the 4 steals, his steals, teammates' steals, giving him dishes at the basket, led to a great night from the field.
And if I believe I read that graphic correctly, no Duke player has ever done that? I mean, come on. Look at what is happening right before our eyes. You're seeing history. No Duke player has ever scored 33 points in their debut until R.J. Barrett did it. And then a game like today, 24 points on 12 of 14 from the field, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. No Duke player, not Grant Hill, no one has ever done this. And again, I understand that the level of competition today is not the greatest for them, but, this is still very impressive what RJ and what Zion and what Trey and what Cam, what these young players are doing.
Guys who are promising to be in the Duke record books for a long time to come. Zion Williamson earlier this year had 25, 15, and 5 blocks, becoming only the second Duke player to do that, along with Mike Jaminski, who did it twice in the 79-80 season before Coach K got here.
Yeah, I would have thought that would have been Christian Laettner.
Now just a minute 40 to go. Duke had 59 in the first half, and Sumner couldn't touch that one. Sports Center with Kenny Mayne, Michael Eaves comes your way tonight after the Mountain West Championship game, with all the highlights, post-game coverage, and reactions from Championship Saturday. SEC title game was a doozy. It helps us figure out who played their way into the college football playoff. Of course, the Big Ten Championship still to be decided. Sports Center's after Fresno State, Boise State on ESPN and the ESPN app. Robinson, he's got his 3rd triple of the night.
Justin Robinson is looking to get in the rotation. The way he's cooking right now, he's looking to find more minutes.
Clay Verk well off the mark. Rebound, put back, doesn't go for Matthews. And it's down to 60 seconds for Duke, going over 100 points for the second time in the first 8 games. Besser wants 3. Crowd's ready to go wild for him. From 15 feet. There it is. That's the biggest cheer of the night. So for Duke fans who got told to relax, chill out, wind down the expectations, they win this one. What should the takeaways be?
Well, the takeaways should be that this team is going to be better in March than they are in November. This Duke program started out with a great November just a year ago with 4 freshmen in the starting lineup and lost game 1 in ACC play. I'm not sure we see that team this year. I think the loss to Gonzaga will help this team more in the long run than going undefeated in non-conference play, because Coach K was able to get their attention.
Robinson with a Zion-like finish.
Oh, and we got the Admiral standing up, baby. The first 3 was just okay, but now we get a standing ovation from the Admiral. Finally giving the son Justin some love.
The first time he hit the 3, it was okay, but now the full smile. You know he's having a good time. 113-49. The final score as number 3 Duke improves to 7-1 and Stetson falls to 1-8.
It's Fee Week on ESPN as we continue Jim Valvano's fight against cancer.